Basically, what I'm doing here in the United States is denouncing the human rights violations that are happening in Brazil. Unfortunately, this kind of activity is being seen by some authorities in Brazil as a crime against the sovereignty and a crime against the Brazilian democracy. Very happy that President Donald Trump is getting his attention to Brazil. He, Secretary Rubio, Secretary Bessent, and are applying some diplomatic medicines before the Brazilian regime consolidates itself. And this is very important because if they consolidate the regime, no longer will be useful all of these diplomatic medicines as sanctions or take the visas, American visas of this kind of authority. I do believe that some sanctions, more sanctions are coming against Brazilian authorities. Yes, I do believe, because Alexandre de Moraes is still doubling down. The last thing that he did is put Jair Bolsonaro under house arrest. And President Trump is saying that it's very bad, it's very ugly, all the lawfare that Jair Bolsonaro, his family, and his supporters are suffering in Brazil. So I could expect more tariffs because Brazilian authorities, they did not change their behavior. They are still doing everything wrong. They are still persecuting political opponents, and this is not a democracy. But it's a madness you believe that you are going all the time and talking things against President Trump, like Lula said, like a new Trump administration would be the new face of Nazism, and then you'll be received with a red carpet here in Washington, D.C. This is insane. So they have to look for what they are doing. I'm not responsible for the results of their behaviors.
Natural a extensão da lei Magnitsky para a esposa do Alexandre de Moraes.
Naturally, the Magnitsky Law should be extended to Alexandre de Moraes' wife. Because the Magnitsky Law is popularly known as the financial death penalty, it's also well known that Alexandre de Moraes, who earns a salary similar to that of a federal deputy but wears a luxury watch that doesn't match his salary, obviously doesn't survive on his own. So it's clear that this funding for Alexandre de Moraes, Brazilian Supreme Court Justice, comes from his wife, who also became very successful after Moraes' appointment to the court. I think it's fair. I firmly believe that Minister Padilha, Brazilian Health Minister Alexandre Padilha, is included in this sanctions list. I see Secretary Rubio as very calm in the way he shares information, and he doesn't release lists. It's hard to imagine that they will send this message to the Brazilian government regarding Mais Medicos, Brazilian health program, talking about sanctions, and not reach Dilma, former Brazilian President Dilma Rousseff and Minister Padilha. So, Moraes is a psychopath with the power of the pen and acts like a mobster. It's a policy they're implementing worldwide, the tariffs. The special issue with Brazil and the 50% tariff, the highest of this latest wave of tariffs announced by President Trump, is due to the institutional crisis we're experiencing. That's why I've been warning anyone who tries to approach this solely from a commercial lens that it won't work. We need to give the US an initial signal that we're resolving this institutional crisis. Brazilian Supreme Court have lost their power. They have to understand that, and it will take time for them to understand it. There is no scenario where the Supreme Court emerges victorious from this whole imbroglio. They're in conflict with the greatest economic power in the world, and Trump hasn't even begun to use all the weapons he has.
Não existe cenário onde a Suprema Corte saia vitoriosa desse imbróglio todo. Eles estão tendo conflito com a maior potência econômica do mundo. O Trump, ele nem começou a usar todas as armas que ele tem à mão dele.